So here's a question for you all. What counts as a successful season for Arsenal Football Club? Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to another video. Yes, it's basically a question that I've been asking briefly in multiple videos and live streams that I've previously done, talking about Arsenal and talking about their transfer business, in which I want to know what counts as a successful season. What is going to save Mikel Arteta's job at the end of this current campaign? Now, obviously, winning the Champions League or winning the Premier League will obviously be enough. But what is the bare minimum you can expect from Arsenal? Because maybe some people think that maybe winning the Champions League and or the Premier League is very unrealistic. Even right now, despite the fact Arsenal have this incredible squad building up. We're going to be talking more about that and diving more into it and looking at maybe what could be the bare minimum for Arsenal to achieve this season. And I, of course, want to know your thoughts and your opinions on this. So do get involved down below in that comment section, because I'm sure you have a lot of interesting takes on this. I'm sure that it's a question that will divide a number of people as to what the bare minimum is for Arsenal this season. So do get involved down there. Would love to hear from you all, your thoughts, your comments, opinions, predictions, feelings, whatever you want to call it on this will make for great and interesting reading, I'm sure. But also don't forget to hit the like button as well on the video. That would be a massive help. And of course, subscribing as well if you're new or want to see more content like this will make for great will make for great reading as well. So I do appreciate all of that good stuff. Thank you very much. But without further ado, let's get on with the video. Let's talk Arsenal Football Club. Let's talk their season ahead. Like I say, it's going to be an interesting one for Arsenal. No one was expecting them last season to get as far as what they did, and you know, apart from falling off at the end of the season, where the pressure got to them a little bit and they couldn't quite handle big injuries and they couldn't quite handle the expectation, it was, for the most part, a pretty incredible, exciting season for Arsenal. Overachieved. No one was expecting them to get second. No one was expecting them to be the closest competitors to Manchester City. And no one was expecting them to lead the Premier League title race for, what was it, something like 93% of the season or something like that. No one was expecting them to do all of that. So it was an incredible season by Arsenal's standards. It's just unfortunate for them that, of course, it all disintegrated and fell away towards the end of the campaign. But the upside is, and the optimism stands from their summer transfer business. It could have been easy for Arsenal to just settle for what they had and not go again. But they've actually shown signs of ambition this season, that they want to go that step further. They want to make a name for themselves again in the Champions League, having got Champions League football back for the first time in a number of years. They've gone out and they've made some absolute statement signings. For me, Jurrien Timber is a quality defender that was obviously a position that Arsenal needed to strengthen and beef up. That is a solid acquisition. Kai Havertz, as much as I don't like the money that was spent for Kai Havertz, and I have ridiculed and mocked it a few times in previous videos and live streams, as part of an overall package and as part of a squad player goes for him, it's understandable as to why Arsenal would go for such a player. And of course, the big one, Declan Rice, a perfect fit for Arsenal Football Club, a perfect fit for Mikel Arteta's side, a perfect fit for the entirety of Arsenal Football Club and for what Mikel Arteta wants to play right now. His attributes are incredible. His attributes perfectly fit in to what Arsenal are looking for. I've said this time and time again whenever I talked about Declan Rice in the past. I think that is a perfect signing for Arsenal. Again, the price may be a bit bumped up due to West Ham trying to exploit Arsenal, trying to get the best deal, and of course there's a bit of English tax thrown onto it as well. But at the same time, it is a move that Arsenal needed to do. It is a move that Arsenal had to do, and it is a move that is going to be perfect for Arsenal, not just for the immediate future, but for the long-term future, I'm sure, as well. Add all these players together, it looks like it's going to be the perfect transfer window. And there still could be one or two more acquisitions coming in for Arsenal. I still wouldn't bet against maybe Arsenal completing one or two more signings, whether they are going to be for the first team, whether they're going to be challenging for the first team, or whether they're going to be youngsters that are going to make their breakthrough in years to come. We'll have to obviously wait and see, but I still think there may be one or two areas that Arsenal can maybe explore different options for. Mainly the attacking area. I still think the right wing position is in need of beefing up. After Bukayo Saka, you don't really have anyone that's going to really challenge him, and I think sometimes that's what can obviously make players go to new levels, is by having someone that can challenge for their position on a weekly and strong basis. Saka, for me, is a player that's first on the team sheet just because of the position that he plays. Get him some competition in there, and maybe his level can increase. And of course, it doesn't harm to have another option, just in case Saka's having maybe an off day on the pitch. You can then maybe look at the strike situation. I know that obviously there's been a lot of talk and speculation about Balogun, about whether or not he's going to be making his breakthrough into the Arsenal team, or whether he's going to be used to be sold and for the club to go on and grow and evolve. That's going to be interesting to see what happens there. There's obviously Eddie Nketiah, who for me is a purple patch merchant. He'll go through maybe a month or so of doing performing very well and performing above expectations certain games, and maybe scoring a few goals as well. But then he'll have a few months off where he's not doing any of that. And Gabriel Jesus, I still rate Jesus. I think that his season kind of stopped a little bit with injury last season. But I think that with a season under his belt at Arsenal, with a season under his belt with his teammates, I think that he'll come good again next season, and I still would back him to get around about the 20 goal contribution mark for next season that he normally tends to get, and especially got when he was with Man City. So there's a couple of areas I think still need to be improved upon and explored upon, but that's not to say that there's not been a lot of money spent. And there has been a lot of money spent. 105 on Declan Rice, 65 on Kai Havertz, and what was it? Something like 35 to 40 million or something on Jurrien Timber. A lot of money. A lot of money. Over 200 million spent on those three players alone. And like I say, there could be a bit more. So there's a lot of money that has been spent there. And it's all left the question of, where do Arsenal go this season, and what counts as a successful season? Like I say, obviously winning the Premier League and winning the Champions League is the overall goal for any club, and for Arsenal it's no different. They'll want to win the Premier League title for the first time in 20 years, and they'll want to win their first Champions League title. That is just the way that obviously it will go, and if that is to be the case, then Arteta has done wonders there, and he's even defied my expectation. Remember, go back to previous videos that I've talked about Mikel Arteta. I've criticised him for when I feel like Arsenal have stood still, but overall, I saw the positives in what Arteta was bringing Arsenal. I saw what Arteta was trying to implement and trying to do at Arsenal, especially when some of the big decisions had to be made in terms of transfers, incomings, and of course transfers in regards to outgoings, and of course how he was trying to play on the pitch. Certain ways that he tried to play, certain games that were either big in terms of a big win, or losses in terms of a big loss, or maybe even big performances that may not have even resulted in wins or losses. I've still been very complimentary, and I've tried to always look at the positive side of what Arteta was trying to bring Arsenal. I didn't think he'd get them to being title contenders or in a title race. I always expected maybe domestic cups and a top four race to be maybe the minimum that maybe Arteta could have produced. But I was proven wrong last season. Now it's about whether or not Arsenal can maintain that kind of performance level going forward, in terms of obviously challenging Manchester City for the top prizes in English football, and maybe even European football as well, maybe a few years down the line. Maybe not so much for this season, but maybe a few years down the line. Many people are predicting that maybe it's a bit of a Leicester season. Obviously, not so much Leicester, because Leicester actually did go on to win the Premier League. But maybe it's a one-off season. Maybe it's just Arsenal taking advantage and just having a off-season in which everything they did was perfect and amazing, and that's why they got as far as what they did. I highly doubt that. I highly, highly doubt that. Do I think they'll go on and win the Premier League next season? I still don't. I don't think they will. Unless they bring in an absolute beast of a striker. Unless they bring in a backup right winger that is going to challenge Bukayo Saka and beef up those two areas in particular. I still don't think they'll have enough in the tank to beat the likes of Man City. Because I think their squad depth is not as good as Man City's. And as we've seen time and time again, whenever City have won the Premier League, squad depth has been key for them. They've been able to bring in certain squad depth players that are not first team names. They're not names that spring to mind right off the bat when you think of Man City. But they're the kind of names that come in and they chip in with a massive contribution. Whether it be a winning goal in a very tight game, whether it be a goal line clearance in a game that City cannot drop points in, or whatever the case may be. There's just a few things like that I think for City they have over Arsenal, and squad depth certainly is one of them. I'm not saying Arsenal are terrible by any means. I'm not saying Arsenal won't be able to challenge City again next season, because I think they definitely will be able to challenge. However long that will be, I don't know. But for me, they're just a little bit off from winning the Premier League, and I don't think they'll win the Champions League either at the first time of returning after a number of years. So for me, I'm looking at this and I'm going, what will then keep Mikel Arteta in the job? Remember, there's been a lot of money spent over the years at Arsenal, not just this summer, but in previous years as well, and they haven't even got Champions League back then. They had no Champions League. The best they had was Europa League football. So there's been a lot of money spent at Arsenal to get them to this point. Where do they go from here? How do they get a successful season from this campaign? For me, if they're not going to win either the top two, they've got to win both of the domestic cups. I don't think a League Cup, with all that they've won, is going to be good enough. Obviously, get top four. Obviously, get back into the Champions League. And I know that obviously the top five qualify for Champions League, but I think it's going to depend on some sort of points-based system that I'm still not 100% sure on. So I don't think they can possibly risk it, because I don't even think they qualify for it, with obviously not being in the Champions League for the past few years. So a top four finish, a title challenge, and an FA Cup and League Cup, in my opinion, is enough. Maybe an FA Cup on its own might be enough for this season to say that he's won something again, and then they can go again for next season, and then that season is definitive. If you don't win one of the major two, you're gone. But either way, I still think Arteta, if he was to leave this season for whatever reason, whether Arsenal don't win any silverware or not, has laid the foundations and the groundwork for someone who is a better accomplished manager, who is a winning manager, who is just overall a better manager than Mikel Arteta, to come in, take this team and just elevate them up a few notches. That's just my opinion on it. I personally think that if Arteta isn't to get them to winning a Champions League or a Premier League this season, or any silverware this season, I reckon he's laid the groundwork perfectly, and the tools are there for another manager who is better to come in, mould it a little bit, tweak a few things, and elevate them and make sure that they get across that finish line ahead of everybody else, to go on and win big, shiny trophies. Whether that will happen or not remains to be seen, but in my personal opinion, there has to be some sort of trophy at the end of this season. A League Cup for me isn't good enough for what Arsenal have spent over the course of the past few years. That for me isn't good enough. An FA Cup, in some people's eyes, probably isn't good enough either, but I think if they can produce a good enough challenge to Manchester City for this season in the league, if they can produce a very good Champions League run as well, an FA Cup might be a bit of a safety net in many respects. And it shouldn't be a trophy that should be overlooked either. But at the same time, I can understand why many people might not agree with me on that one, that maybe that isn't good enough. But they have to obviously produce something to show a step forward, something to show progression in those other two big competitions for this season. But we'll wait and see, obviously, how it goes. But I want to know more your thoughts and comments on this. These are just, obviously, the thoughts, comments, opinions, predictions, feelings, whatever you want to call it, of this guy. I want to know what you guys think on this one. What would you say is a successful season for Arsenal Football Club this season? And what's going to be enough to keep Mikel Arteta in the job? What do you expect from Arsenal going forward into this forthcoming campaign? Remember, we're only a couple of weeks away from obviously the beginning of a brand new Premier League season. The anticipation is building. I, for one, certainly cannot wait for everything to kick off once again. But I want to know what you guys think on Arsenal Football Club. What do you say is a good enough season to keep Mikel Arteta in the job? What's the bare minimum Arteta can achieve this season with Arsenal? I want to know your thoughts, comments, opinions, predictions, feelings, whatever you want to call it, in the comments section down below. I'm sure it will make it interesting and great reading. Otherwise, hit the like button on the way up if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe if you're new or want to see more content like this. Both things are always and very greatly appreciated. And as always, thank you all so much for watching and listening. I've been Fletch. This has been another Fletch Talks video, and I will see you speak to you all again soon in another video. Thanks, guys. See you soon.